Let's have a huge round of applause. And without further ado, it's time for me to hand over the stage to Mr. Benjamin Ambrose.
Thank you. I have an esteemed list of panelists with me with whom I would like to interact today, and I would like to learn a little bit as well from them. So why don't you introduce yourself, Nitin? Just a quick introduction about yourself, what you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Benjamin. I think, so my name is Nitin Bhatnagar. I'm Regional Director for PCI Security Standard Council, managing India's South Asia and Middle East. And in my role, I look after educating, creating awareness around the standards and how you can protect,
companies as well, right? How they want to.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, I do. We would love to hear your thoughts on that. Dharshan.
Thanks, Ben. Good morning, everyone. Super excited to be here. My name is Dharshan Shanthamurthy. I'm the founder, CEO of CISA. We are a cybersecurity solutions company which focuses on the digital payment industry. Personally, I've been in the cybersecurity for the digital payment industry for the last 2 decades. Had the good fortune of being a volunteer for UPI and Aadhaar. Been in the payment space for.
So obviously it creates a lot of excitement. My name is Suresh Rajagopalan. I'm CEO of Wibmo. Wibmo is, many of you would have used a credit card to make a payment on the e-commerce, would have come across Wibmo. We are a 20-year-old authentication platform. In 2019 we got acquired by PayU. And it's a full 100% owned entity of PayU now. PayU payments and all into Fintech. We are not only in the authentication space, we do work across other areas as well, including payment gateway, prepaid cards and things like that. Personally about me, I have over 30 years of experience in banking technology, worked in beyond India and 15, 16 years outside India. Been a CIO, COO for banks, and last 15 years in the executive space of payments.
Thank you, Suresh.
Good morning, everyone. Global Fintech Fest. Global Fintech Fest 2024 just saw that there's 75,000 fintech professionals who are coming in. The first session is on cybersecurity and how fintechs can comply with cybersecurity. I guess that kind of sets a benchmark of how important cybersecurity is. Having said that, I'm Sanket, Sarkar, that particular point, and right now interact day to day with the financial sector, regulators, fintechs, anyone who is in the financial world, which actually allows us to have an understanding of the different pain areas with respect to different people who are running the show, right? So that we can make a platform which would enable them to understand cyber risk from a same perspective. So that's in short about me. And I just ask the audience to have a big round of applause for yourself, because this is the first panel. No one just came in here today, I guess, just because the room was vacant, because every even that we see the first panel, everyone sees, okay, this is a panel that I want to go over, right? So and we have a room full of it. So a round of applause for yourself.
Thank you, Sanket. So I don't want to bore you all with statistics and stuff like that, right? So Fintechs, when it took off 10 years ago, I was working in a large multinational bank. So at that time, the thought process was, so what is the impact to the financial system across the globe with Fintechs coming in? Are they going to chip away our market share? Are they going to take away our customers? But soon, the financial institutions, at least the big ones, realized that Fintechs are here to stay, right? They are an essential part of our financial ecosystem. So they started embracing them, right? So I remember working towards developing a sandbox environment on behalf of my company to host these. We are also behind this bandwagon. They have started putting together sandboxes, right, in their respective jurisdictions, in order to encourage fintech companies to come in, because everybody saw the benefit at that time. But after a decade, I can proudly say that if whether you are a customer or a banker or you are a fintech company, right, it's a win-win situation for everyone. Fintech is here to stay, they have a role to play. But the million dollar question is, being a fintech, right, you have a lot of constraints, right? Time is a big constraint, resources is another constraint, right? I always joke saying that whether you have $1 billion budget for cybersecurity or $1 million budget for cybersecurity, you still have the same number of threat vectors that each one of us have. Even if you are not from, if you are not working for a fintech company or you are not from the fintech background, just that they are part of our ecosystem now, it helps us to understand what are some of the challenges that fintech companies face, and also from a regulatory standpoint, what are some of the must-win battles for them. So once we understand that, we will be able to do a better job in our day-to-day work. So I hope I would learn quite a bit from this conversation, because as CISO of NPCI, I also interact with quite a few fintech companies with whom we have collaboration and partnerships. Without further ado, right, I would like to jump straight into the questions. Right, we have a very informal format here, 3 or 4 questions. I would also open the floor to the audience to ask 1 or 2 questions if time permits, so that we can make it an interactive session. So the first question would be to Suresh. So if I am a fintech company, right, from a regulatory standpoint, what are some of the things that I need to pay attention to?
Yeah, I think before we jump into sort of what are the complaints or regulatory requirements, let's define what is fintech first, right? Because it's a very, very generic term, very broad, and since Nitin is here, immediately people jump to payment tech, and payment technology is the only fintech, because there are lending tech, there are insure tech. So many areas where they are all form part of the BFSI and fintech ecosystem. So one very closely associated with the financial services industry and providing services in broad, that is the definition of a fintech. That means effectively you are dealing with the customers data, right? So the end users are very different. So you work for another entity, and that entity serves a very large end consumer. So that means you are a custodian of the data. So you got lot more fiduciary responsibility than normally you would own the data and things like that. Right? So that's the definition of first fintech. I think if you define this next stage, fintechs are, like I said, different industry segments. Then they are also under different jurisdiction, right? Some operate in India, some in different geographies, some are regional, some are global. So you need to understand what is the complexity involved in these different jurisdictions. That's the second layer. The third layer is your size of the company, right? I think you rightly put it, whether you are a very small fintech or a very big fintech, the controls are common, right? Whether it's a small house or a big villa, you still have the key and you have to open the key and whatever it is. So it's the same control, same principles and things like that. So let's define this. First, if you are a global fintech or if you are fintech, which are the jurisdiction you operate, what are the type of services you do, whether you operate in insurance or payments or banking or whichever sector, and then you apply those rules. So just to put this all in perspective, there is a general guidelines, right, which is generic across the industry. Like the ISO 27001 standards, where it defines the ISMS practices, the security standards and things like that. And there are certain other general practices, right, with best practices like NIST, some of the guidelines and practices which are available in different jurisdictions. So that's a very broad general guidelines. Then you go one layer above, then it becomes a region, or a country like Nigeria has got an NDPR. California has got a CCPA, which is a separate act. So GLBA in US. So it's a different privacy acts in each of those layers and things like that. That means you need to understand the requirements in that jurisdiction. So you need to follow the rules of the law and things like that, and ensure that you are able to support that consumer protection rights in that country. And then the other layer, which is very important, is the very industry specific regulation. If you talk about insurance industry has got an insurance security guidelines. SEBI in India has got their own sandbox and their own guidelines. RBI has got their own set of guidelines. So every industry body where you operate, digital lending guidelines have come. So then you need to drill down and see what is specifically applicable to your industry, and then you need to address that. And then you have your own company policies and what is your risk appetite and things like that. So generally, if you have to put this across in a sort of a framework, either in the form of a concentric circles or in a kind of a pyramid, so the broad guidelines like PCI, while many of us will think that PCI is for payments, but it just become very widely prevalent across the industry. It's just not for payments, because every industry is associated with payments. Whether it is healthcare, you need to make a payment. So payment industry, certain principles, the Payment Systems Settlement Act and all of that is very applicable for these other industries as well. So in general, if you look at what are those guidelines, the encryption standards could be common, the data privacy standards could be common, the access rights could be common. So many of these, all these security related controls could be common across industry, could be the underlying principle. So in general, in a nutshell, we need to make sure that we understand the jurisdiction, the size of company, where all we operate, and very importantly, what is the kind of budget you need to allocate, right? Because at the end of the day, very easy to say I will follow all this tick mark and security certification, but in letter and spirit we need to use those certifications and ensure that we follow these standards, because it is just like a hygiene, right? People say it's like brushing your teeth daily morning. So it is as simple as that to start for
cyber hygiene. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Suresh, for those views. Right, I believe the steps that you mentioned, right, will not only allow these fintech companies to become cyberproof themselves, but also a business enabler, right? When you go and pitch your product to B2Bs, right, then when you say that I'm compliant with all these regulations, then you are a quick switch gears here, right, moving away from the regulatory angle. What do you think some of the top challenges these fintech companies face, right? Top 2 challenges. Nitin, if I may turn over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Suresh. I think you just briefly touched on each aspect. And I think I just wanted to briefly, also tell you 2 things which I see. I've been talking to the fintechs at large, and then I'm sure Dharshan would also have to add to it. Education awareness is very, very important. Now, how these standards are evolving is very critical. They need to understand the implementation aspects. They need to understand what level of compliances that they need to follow. Now, there is always a misconception that the fintechs at large have, is that do I need to go for a full-fledged PCI standards compliances? Answer may be yes, maybe no. But at the same time, they need to evaluate, because see, you can't establish something from day one. You have to start from a scratch, right? Starting with the programs that the PCI Security Standard Council has, like self-assessment questionnaire. You need to understand, you need to, even a small kid learns A, B, C, D, you know. I'm just seeing with my daughter today, she's learning A, B, C, D, and then she's saying A for apple, B for boy. Now that's how the fintechs also needs to understand the importance of data security. They have to understand the importance of what the requirements of the standards means to them, how they should be taking it to the next level. Next level means, you know, improving from SEQ to another level of involving their internal security as a major challenge for us. Again, I would say education is very, very critical. Awareness is critical for the employees to understand how to mitigate these risks. Ransomware attacks, which are being rampant like crazy, and I think we are seeing this trends, and these are the 2 major threats that we are seeing globally, which is impacting everyone. Again, I would say, go back to your drawing board, see how you can educate your stakeholders, yourself, and then in turn the customers of yours. So I think these are the 2 things. These are challenges, but we can overcome these challenges very easily by having a simple principle of educating yourself, creating awareness, and this is what we can do.
Hey, thank you, Nitin. You made a pertinent point, right? See, if you are a budding fintech company and you have a major cyber incident, right? It is as good as staring down the exit path, right? So, with that being said, Dharshan, would you like to add some of the other challenges that these fintech companies face when it comes to cyberproofing themselves?
First of all, thanks, Ben. So, I mean, kind of articulate this, what Suresh and Nitin just mentioned. In especially fintech companies, you're juxtaposed between three pillars, right? So first, I mean, probably adding to what you also mentioned. First is you have a business which is growing at breakneck speed. And you have, obviously, many of people here can understand, you have investors, you've got business, you've got great opportunity, there's a total addressable market that you need to run. So there is obviously need for super fast growth. Right? The second dimension for a fintech is you have to understand that you're dealing with data of others. And it's a fiduciary responsibility. So the fintech companies, and that's why it's highly regulated. So the regulatory construct that you brought out is so important because at the end of the day, you are dealing with data of others, and hence regulators, whichever place you are breaking, and as you rightly just put the question before I got started, is that you can go out of business. And we have seen this time and again, not just in India but across the world. The third and most important, which I just want to add from my dimension, is one of the key things in fintech is you need to realize it's a high value target. I mean, many of you know us as SISA, but we also are forensic investigators. One of the key things that we need to also understand that a data which is sold on the dark web, if it is a financial data, it is 1,000 times more valuable than a social media account. That's one of the key things that people don't observe. An average cost of a record on a dark web for a financial information is between $25 to $125 compared to a few cents of, say, a Dharshan's personal Gmail ID account. So it's a high value target. And we have seen, as forensic investigators, as you know, we've been part of many investigations across, including India, is that it's a high value target. So people are there to break into the network. And so fintechs actually are juxtaposed between all these three areas. One, breakneck speed, you have to go, and you have to grow fast. That means that you have to loosen your controls. Second, you have a regulatory mandate because of fiduciary responsibility can go out of business. And third, you're a high value target for intruders, both insiders, outsiders to break in. So now how do you balance all this? So cyberproofing in some sense against you have to keep that in concept. And the way I look at it is like the way they say, right? You need to be the lion in Africa kind of wakes up with the mindset to outpace the slowest gazelle, and the gazelle wakes up every day morning to outpace the fastest lion. Right? So in some sense, that's where we are juxtaposed in fintech. And one of the key things that I would encourage every participant here to think through is fintech is different from the rest of the industry. Like for example, if you're running a social media account, a company, social media company, because here you're a high value company. That's the only addition that I would add to what you, Suresh and Nitin just put out.
Thank you, Dharshan. So, I'm always intrigued by the challenge on the race between time to market and risk management and cyber security. Right? So, whether you work for a fintech or for a large company, even large companies these days, they want to be as nimble as the fintechs, right? So that's the good part that the fintechs have imbibed on these large companies, right? If you look at big banks 20 years ago, they were like supermarkets, right? That led to the financial meltdown in 2008, right? So they had all the financial products under the roof, right? So they didn't pay much attention to risk management, including liquidity risk management, right? So that's where we ended up with 2008. But as fintech companies, I want to ask Sanket this question, right? So how do you balance this out, right? Time to market versus cybersecurity or risk management?
Sure. This question that we get a lot of times when we talk with many different people, right? There are two things in the world of fintech, and the reason that fintech came into the origin was innovations, right? That's what drives fintechs. Now, many a times we get this question: if we have to follow all of this, how do we go and innovate, right? And take 1 minute to describe you something on innovations of a hacker and what can be a scale of a hack. You get up one morning and see 1 lakh amount gone from your bank account. Is that a good hack?
I would think so. Yeah, 1 lakh from your account.
Fine. You get up in the morning, you open the news and you see 1 rupee gone from every Indian. Many people talk about business is important to us, right? Absolutely. But what if a cyber attack just stops your business? How many of you have heard this thing called ransomware? Please raise your hand. Everyone, right? So what ransomware is? Supposedly I go and hack a particular organization and I'll ask for a ransomware amount, right? How do I decide on what the amount that I should ask for? Like, do I hack something? Yes.
The value of the data which has been released, what value does it hold to the government? Like, if it is a financial loss, or if, so the value which the loss holds, the data holds, according to that. And like, if it is user data being breached, or if it is a financial data being breached, so the fraudster would decide the value on that.
Okay. Fantastic. I don't know your name, but fantastic answer.
My name is Manisha. I'm the co-founder of Zacton.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Just an addition to that, right? And we need to think in this particular way. When, as a hacker, someone just tries to do it, every time it's just not the data that we are hacking. It can be a cascading and domino effect. It can actually bring down a country's economy. Right? I'll give you one example. Recently there was a ransomware attack on CH. Right? How did it affect the entire market? It like took it for a pause. I'll give you one more thing. 1 year back we saw an issue with Paytm. Right? It does not just affect Paytm but everyone who is a connected party with that. Now when we start thinking on, okay, my time to market is the challenge, which is, you asked, right? My time to market is the challenge, I need to be fast. What if I am there and then I stop? If I need to bridge that particular gap, I need to go both hand in hand. Otherwise, it's not going to work out. If tomorrow a regulator comes and takes away my license, I just cannot work. Right? So, I think that particular thought process is something that needs to come from the top leadership. We have seen how Suresh mentioned about that particular thing, right? It needs to come from the top leadership because else, whichever my co-panelists said, the awareness and all, people are not going to get it. You go to the business department, they would be like, we need to do sales. Fine. But what if the business stops? We're not being able to onboard the particular customer. And that would actually help them get aware of the cybersecurity nuances because it's going to, at the end of the day, affect the kind of money that they can earn in their life. Right? So that kind of a thought process would actually help to make a balance with the security, complying with that, and the time to market.
So thank you, Sanket. You're saying basically, if you look for the long-term sustainability of your business, you better pay attention to risk management or cybersecurity as well, because otherwise it will bring your business to a grinding halt someday.
Yeah, like someone told me a long time back, running a company is not a T20 match, it's a test cricket.
I like test cricket, mate. Thanks. Dharshan, do you have a rejoinder on this one?
Yeah, I just wanted to add what Sanket just rightly said, and to the lady out there, I think very good point. Because being a forensic investigator, just on the other side, he's a hacker. We are the ones who sometimes get called in to protect and contain the environments, right? So one of the key things, two other points. One is in payment, in fintech, there is one more construct, which is here. It is not about the money that you lose, which is the the data, the value of the data, but it's also the reputation. And one of the key things that we miss out in this space is that is invaluable, because the entire thing works on trust, especially in the fintech industry. So trust is gone, everything is gone. That's number one. just turning a little bit more technical because I'm also a technical guy, but just to add, there is this concept of ransomware because I can't have the freedom to name companies because obviously we are on the other side. But having said, there is this trend which is happening, which is we are used to ransomware. There is a double extortion, there is triple extortion, and there is now what we are seeing is quadruple extortion. Right? So one of the key things is just not about taking data. So one of the key things that you need to understand, especially it just brought me to our attention, is now when an intruder gets into the environment, one of the key things that we see is exfiltrating the data is not easy. Right? Let's take it that. So what ransomware essentially created an opportunity for them to monetize by encrypting the data and then asking for ransom. So they don't have to exfiltrate. But now they have figured it out how to exfiltrate the data. And now what has happened is you can double extortion is I encrypt it and then I ask you for ransom. And then I also tell that I'm going to inform the world. Now one of the key things that we have started seeing is triple and quadruple extortion extortion has started with they informing the regulators. Where we have got threats, wherein recently I can't obviously disclose things, but they are and now the recent case went a step further. They are saying we'll inform the investors. Okay. So that's what is the trend which we are seeing in ransomware attacks, wherein I not just ask you money for getting my own data back, but I also say that I will release it to the world and monetize on the dark web, release it to the regulators, investors, and your also customers. And we have seen that happen a number of times when you don't really pay ransom. And just for tickling thoughts, how many do you think people end up paying ransom? Just a guess, how much? Single digit, double digit, triple digit, how many people end up paying ransom? High double digits, right? So just people who do not pay ransom is about less than 10%, statistically. So people do not admit in the room that at the end of the day, many organizations, but still ransomware, I'm just putting some perspective as to the rampantness of this. And one of the key things that you don't, even after paying ransom, you're not really sure whether you get your data back in your safe hands.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Dharshan, for enlightening us with the triple and quadruple extortions. I was not aware of that. It's a good learning. As I promised, I'll allow one question from the audience, and if you can keep it real short, because we are running out of time. I would like to summarize the discussion as well. One question. Gentlemen,
Yeah, hi. I'm Professor Grupesh, heading the Department of Fintech, we do MBA in Fintech. So my question is very simple. How AI can effectively enhance penetration testing and thus enhance the cyber security posture?
Dharshan, you want to take this?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Yeah. So one is so AI for cyber security is what we are talking, and not cyber security for AI. That's another dimension. So AI for cyber security, how can you use for penetration testing? Obviously, it's a tool set, so you have getting into the details. You can go into the case that there is a business logic vulnerability, and then of course you have technical use cases, what we call as in penetration testing cheat cases. Bulk of these cheat cases can be automated, but obviously there's what we are heading towards and going towards is a hybrid approach, where we can definitely use AI for automating some of those kinds of tests, and obviously we can use large language models to definitely speed up the pen testing activities, right? So because they are all there, but you have to also remember the bad guys are also using the same technology to identify, and that's one of the reasons why today the time, I'm just converting that to the multiple problems that exist in the marketplace. Today our patch window is getting reduced. Earlier 3 months used to be good. We saw that in Equifax breach, the 3 months window was not good enough. You had to do really monthly. Now the patch window is coming down, and so penetration testing literally is becoming a continuous test now. And with AI, you can leverage this but I think the business models there are evolving, where you do a continuous penetration testing literally every day or every time you have a release, and then you have a hybrid approach so that you have some amount of validation. But you just can't rely only on the AI-driven pen testing. I hope I answered your question. Okay.
I just want to add, I mean, as a somebody who sponsors funds for some of these testing in my company, it's very tough, right? When the amount of developers who develop applications, whereas the amount of people who you actually do the pen test are very limited. So given that background, some of these newer technologies which you mentioned, like these are very essential to sort of not only save cost, but the time. Because the zero-day vulnerability becomes the the order of the day. You need to make sure that you have to prevent. The second is that zero trust architecture. You can't establish a zero trust architecture without the adequate data, right? So you need to have the amount of data which you can collect and harness the data and make sure that you predict the patterns or anomalies. The third element which is very important, especially for a payment industry we are coming from, where the fraud and risk management on the transaction-based security and how it gets integrated with the cyber security, right? Because today they all sit in silos. The cyber security world sits in silo. They don't sort of correlate and work in sort of hand in glove with the transaction security monitoring and things like that. Still, it's like a back office job. So how do you take this to a front and then make sure that you integrate these two? Because it's at the end of the day the same data. So I think some of those experiments which we do today is helping us in terms of preventing some of these frauds at the edge itself, right? Because you don't want this to come to us and then interact and then create the panic in the ecosystem. So some of this very useful question which you raised, I think. Thank you.
The last thing just sort to add on Dharshan and Suresh is that this AI standards are also evolving, and the PCI security standard is constantly working and trying to get the inputs of the industry so that we can evolve these standards to also get with the AI requirements. Now, that's just started, and I think I would request everyone who wants to contribute to these standards and sees some relatively some great inputs coming with your inputs, we may create some great work on these standards for the AI. And I think definitely AI is the future, but it also comes with its own challenges. So we have to be really very conscious of what these challenges may give us the effects of. So it's the last one.
Thanks.
Just on to
Sanket, probably a 30-second.
Sure. Your question was, can AI help us do pen testing? Question, sir. 70% yes. 30% no. The reason is cybersecurity is not a tech, it's an art. And humans are known for its artistic mind, right? I might go and take someone from an organization for a date, dinner, get information, hack it, right? Which is something that's very less of a practice in our country as of right now in terms of proper red teaming. So 70% yes, 30% no.
That's a great answer, Sanket. Yeah. Because it's still an art, right? It can't be fully automated, right? The human mind can still be the best AI out there. Yeah. All right, I'd like to summarize today's panel discussion, right? So we started off with the regulatory requirements. So Suresh made a great point saying that you need to look at the jurisdiction under which you operate and also the industry that you're targeting, right? So the industry specific regulations will come into play. And secondly, Nitin also mentioned that education and awareness continues to remain as one of the key challenges for the fintech companies, right? And Dharshan also mentioned the triangle in which the fintech companies are juxtaposed in between, right? So they need to balance these priorities while at the same time maintain strong cybersecurity response. Right, Sanket being a hacker himself, he brought in that lens of how the world looks like, right, in the perspective of a hacker, right, and also the impact that a cyber incident can create, can bring down a company, a nation, a community, and so forth, right. So it's not just a business-related question; it is much more than that, right. So thank you, gentlemen, for the conversation. I learned quite a bit. I hope the audience did as well. A round of applause for all of the panelists.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our session and it has been an enlightening experience engaging in conversation with all of you. We extend our heartfelt thanks to our esteemed speaker, moderator and the audience. It has been an honor to have you join us for Global Fintech Fest 2024 and I kindly request everyone to kindly stand up for a group picture.